Welcome to a new season in our lives. We are on a mission to demolish the arguments that have kept us from taking our next step towards true Christian authenticity. Are you ready to tear down those self-protective masks that are holding you back in life, in business, in relationships? It's about mindset, but more specifically, learning to keep our minds set on Christ regardless of circumstance. This is the Mindset School podcast. I'm your host, Peggy Easterling. Let's be real, okay? Are you ready? Let's go. Hey friends, welcome back. If you've ever felt like you had to choose between being a woman of faith and being successful in business, then this episode is going to change everything for you. You've been lied to. The Proverbs 31 woman, she was not just a homemaker. She was a CEO. And if you've ever wrestled with guilt over wanting success, it's time to rewrite that story. Have you ever felt like wanting success is less than spiritual? Does making money feel selfish or worldly? Do you hold back in your business because you're afraid of being too much? Today, I'm going to show you how the Proverbs 31 woman built a thriving business, why success isn't simple, and how you can step into the calling that God has placed on your life without guilt, without fear, and without hesitation. I remember a time when I felt stuck between faith and ambition. I knew I wanted to make an impact, but deep down, I wrestled with guilt. And I thought I should just be grateful for what I have. I shouldn't even ask for more or want more. Why is this not enough for me? Should I be wanting more for my life? I would sit with God and keep putting my calling on an altar, telling him how unworthy I was. I would say, God, I'm not ready. I'm not qualified. I don't have it all together. And you know what he kept doing? He kept giving it back to me. He kept refining me personally along the way. He kept calling me out. He kept calling me up. And he kept helping me put off my old self. Those mindset struggles, the self-loathing, the doubts that told me I had to earn my worth instead of walking boldly in what he had already placed inside of me. This isn't just my struggle. I know there are women listening right now. You do the exact same thing. You keep telling God why you're not good enough for the thing that he's called you to. You keep waiting for him to take it away because you think someone else is more qualified. God doesn't see you through the lens of your doubts. He sees you through the lens of who he created you to be. I say this to my clients all the time. But this is the truth. I'm not a coach because I have it all together. I am in the middle of this calling that God has on my life because I have made a choice to be obedient to his call. And I'm willing to be vulnerable, to be real. And in the middle of the messy, I choose to align myself with his mission for my life, instead of aligning myself with the doubts and the fears that still come to me to this day. And let me tell you, I have had humbling moments where God has reminded me exactly where my worth comes from. I had this moment where I had shared a picture of myself with Priscilla Schreier in my community. And in that moment, I felt like that picture gave me some credibility. Like, look at me. I'm someone because I'm standing next to Priscilla Schreier. I love her, by the way. She's amazing and her work is amazing. But my attitude in that moment was cringy. I can say that now because I see it so clearly. But at the time, I felt like it was an important positioning move. You know what happened though? My community didn't care. They weren't there for who I was standing next to. They were already getting value. They were there because of the encouragement and the strength and the transformation that happens inside of the Mindset School community. God convicted me hard that day because I had been trying to position myself instead of just walking in my calling. I'd been looking at myself through distorted lenses, this high way of looking at me with pride, or this low, I'm unworthy type of pride. And neither one of these is from Him. Ephesians 4 says it this way: put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life, and be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. So let me ask you, are you doing what I did? Are you putting your calling on the altar over and over and over again, telling God why you're unworthy? And does He keep handing it back to you? Are you seeing yourself through pride on either end of the spectrum? Look at me, pride, or I'm not enough, pride. Because here's the truth. God never called me to position myself. He called me to trust Him and to take the next action step He puts in front of me, to take that step of faith. And when I finally surrendered that, God begins to use me in amazing ways. And He'll use you too. And it's humbling, but it's amazing at the same time. And this is exactly why I want to talk about the Proverbs 31 woman. Because for so long, I've misunderstood her. We've either idolized her as an impossible standard or dismissed her as just a homemaker. But in reality, she was a woman who walked boldly with obedience, stewardship, and confidence in the Lord. And that's exactly what He's calling you to today. And I want that for you. Not perfection, not having it all figured out, but just choosing to be obedient and willing to do it sweaty instead of surrendering to that fear. When most people think about the Proverbs 31 woman, they picture someone who just stayed home and she took care of her family and she made bread from scratch. And yeah, she was incredible as a wife and a mother. But what often gets overlooked is the fact that she was a powerhouse entrepreneur. She didn't just work hard, she worked smart. And she made financial decisions. She ran businesses. And she created wealth that extended beyond her household. And today I want to show you exactly how she did that so you can see what's possible for you as well. Proverbs 31:16 says, she considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. I want to stop there for a second. She considers a field. That means she's evaluating, strategizing, and making intentional financial decisions. She's thinking about the long term. She's not asking for permission. She's not wondering if she's qualified. And she's not feeling guilty about making a purchase. She makes a wise investment. And then what does she do? She plants a vineyard. That means she's not just thinking about the short-term gain. She's planting something that will grow, produce, and multiply. She's thinking generationally. She's looking at that return on investment, that ROI. How many times have you hesitated to take a financial step because you felt like you weren't supposed to? The Proverbs 31 woman wasn't afraid to make bold decisions. You shouldn't be either. Proverbs 31:24 says, she makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. Y'all, this woman was not just making things for fun. She was running a full-scale operation, producing linen garments, selling them to customers, working with merchants and business owners. This girl had a supply chain, y'all. She had a business and she had business relationships. She was a B2B and B2C entrepreneur before those were even terms that we talked about. If you've ever thought, I don't know if I can handle running a business, I want to remind you, this woman didn't have the internet. She didn't have social media. She didn't have Shopify or Canva, but she still built something profitable because she was a resourceful woman and she took action. Proverbs 31:25 says she was clothed with strength and dignity, and she can laugh at the days to come. I absolutely love her confidence, right? I love this verse because it shows us something that is critical for success. She wasn't living in fear. She wasn't worried about her future. She wasn't afraid of failure. She literally laughed at the days to come. Y'all, let's be real now. How often do we do the opposite? How often do we stress about whether we're making the right decision? How often do we overthink and second guess ourselves? We convince ourselves we're not good enough or that something bad's going to happen. But the Proverbs 31 woman, she did not entertain that fear. She moved forward with strength, dignity, and confidence. That's what we're called to do. That's what you're called to do. One of the biggest objections I hear from women when it comes to business and success. I don't want to focus on making money. I just want to help people. Y'all, I'm telling you, this is me sometimes. It's been me in the past. But guess what? God's been teaching me something. And listen to me. Making money and helping people, they are not opposites. They go together. The Proverbs 31 woman is proof of that. Proverbs 31:20 says, she opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. She wasn't giving out of lack. She was giving from her overflow. She created a business that allowed her to bless others. If you've been holding back in your business because you feel guilty about making money, I want to remind you of something. Money in the hands of good people does good things. And if God's given you gifts and talents and the ability to build something, why wouldn't you use it? Why wouldn't you multiply what you've been given? Now, I know some of you are thinking, that all sounds great, but I still don't feel like I can step into that. I feel unqualified. I feel like I don't have what it takes to be bold and to make wise decisions or build something that lasts. Let me tell you, that's exactly what the enemy wants you to believe. Because if he can keep you doubting yourself, he can keep you from taking action. And if he can keep you small, he can keep you quiet. And kingdom impact that God has placed inside of you, if you keep thinking that way, it never gets realized. So why do many of us struggle to step into what God has already given us? Imposter syndrome comes along and it says things like, I'm not ready. I don't have enough experience. Someone else can do it better than me. Or false humility comes in and says, I don't want to make this about me. I don't want to just serve. I don't need to be seen. God will open the door when the time is right. There is some truth to that. But if we're using that as an excuse to not take action, it is not serving us. What if the thing that's really kept you stuck isn't God closing a door? It's you refusing to walk through the one He's already opened. And I know that may be hard for us to hear today. But what if the real reason you don't feel ready isn't because God is holding you back? It's because you're still believing something about yourself that isn't true, and it's not aligned with His identity. Let's be real. What we believe about ourselves directly impacts what we allow ourselves to step into. And this is why renewing our minds is a non-negotiable. Because when we step into business, when we step into any calling, our biggest battle isn't strategy, marketing, or finances. The biggest battle of all is our own mindset, our own thoughts. Ephesians 4:22 says to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. You have an old self and you have a new self. And your job, it's to let go of the mindset, the patterns, and the false beliefs of who you used to be. I'm going to say that again. Your job, let go of the mindset, the patterns, and the false beliefs of who you used to be. And then you can walk in the confidence of who God has already created you to be. So here's a choice right in front of you. Are you going to keep on waiting? Keep overthinking? Keep believing the same old arguments that have held you back? Are you ready? Because the Proverbs 31 woman didn't wait until she felt ready. She didn't wait until she had permission. She moved boldly in faith because she knew her work mattered. And friend, your work matters too. And I hear you. You might be wondering, okay, but how do I actually start shifting my mindset? Y'all, this isn't about just inspiring you. This is about you stepping into transformation. And transformation requires action. What we believe about ourselves directly impacts what we allow ourselves to step into. And this is why renewing our minds is a non-negotiable. Because when we step into business, when we step into any calling, our biggest battle isn't strategy, marketing, or finances. The biggest battle of all is our own mindset, our own thoughts. Ephesians 4:22 says to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. You have an old self and you have a new self. And your job, it's to let go of the mindset, the patterns, and the false beliefs of who you used to be. I'm going to say that again. Your job, let go of the mindset, the patterns, and the false beliefs of who you used to be. And then you can walk in the confidence of who God has already created you to be. So here's a choice right in front of you. Are you going to keep on waiting? Keep overthinking? Keep believing the same old arguments that have held you back? Are you ready? Because the Proverbs 31 woman didn't wait until she felt ready. She didn't wait until she had permission. She moved boldly in faith because she knew her work mattered. And friend, your work matters too. And I hear you. You might be wondering, okay, but how do I actually start shifting my mindset? Y'all, this isn't about just inspiring you. This is about you stepping into transformation. And transformation requires action. You know, hearing is one thing, but taking action on it is another. It's easy to stay in the cycle of consuming information, nodding along, and feeling inspired. But transformation doesn't happen just by listening. It happens when you step out in faith and do something with it. That's why in every episode, I'm going to challenge you to take one small but powerful step. Because if you want to break free from the fear, doubt, and mindset struggles that have held you back, you have to start moving. So here's today's challenge. You've been thinking about this step for way too long, and it's sitting in your brain collecting dust while fear and doubt throw a party. And guess what? They're uninvited. Proverbs 31:25 says this: she's clothed with strength and dignity, and she can laugh at the days to come. That's not a woman who sits in fear. That's not a woman who overthinks. That's a woman who moves in faith. And it's time for you to do the same. Here's today's challenge. Pick one thing you've been avoiding. That email, that call, that post, that decision. You know exactly what it is. And number 2, do it today, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, today. Set a timer and go. Do it. And the last thing is to tell someone. Accountability makes it real. Text a friend, post it in the Mindset School's online community on Facebook, or DM me, because I want to cheer you on. No more waiting, no more overthinking, just action. God's already equipped you. You don't need permission. You don't need another sign. You just need to take the step. So go do it. Thank you for joining me today on our journey towards Christian authenticity and a Christ-centered mindset. Remember, the masks that we wear not only hide our true selves, but also keep us held back, living small in life, in business, and in relationships. As we wrap up, I invite you to take a crucial step towards your breakthrough. I created the Breakthrough Quiz just for you. Head over to themindsetSchool.net/quiz and dive in to discover a guide to move you closer to your authentic self and renewing your mind God's way. Until next time, let's be real, okay?